Emma and Ethan Martinez had always been inseparable. At 12 years old, the twins shared everything: their bedroom in the small apartment, their homework struggles, and most importantly, their deep love for their mother, Sophia. Their father had left when they were 7, leaving Sophia to work double shifts at the local diner just to keep food on the table and a roof over their heads. The twins noticed the changes in their mother gradually. Sophia started coming home later, looking more tired than usual. Her bright smile, which had always been their source of comfort, began to fade. Dark circles appeared under her eyes, and she often held her side when she thought the children weren't looking. When the twins asked if she was okay, Sophia would ruffle their hair and say she was just working too hard. One evening in late October, everything changed. Emma was helping her mother fold laundry when Sophia suddenly doubled over in pain. Her face went pale and she collapsed onto the couch, clutching her stomach. Ethan dropped his math homework and rushed to his mother's side. Sophia tried to reassure them that it was nothing, just a stomachache, but the twins could see the fear in her eyes. The next morning, Sophia couldn't get out of bed. Emma made toast for breakfast while Ethan called their neighbor, Mrs. Chen, who had always been kind to their family. Mrs. Chen took one look at Sophia and insisted on driving her to the emergency room. The twins waited anxiously in the hospital's bright, sterile waiting room, holding hands and making promises to God that they would do anything if their mother would be okay. When the doctor finally spoke to them, his words hit like a thunderbolt. Sophia had been diagnosed with a serious illness that would require immediate treatment. The medical bills would be enormous, far beyond what their small family could afford. Sophia's insurance from the diner would cover some costs, but not nearly enough. The doctor explained that without proper treatment, Sophia's condition would worsen rapidly. That night, back in their small apartment, Sophia sat the twins down at their kitchen table. Her voice was soft but steady as she explained what the doctor had told her. She tried to sound brave, telling them that everything would work out, that they would find a way. But Emma and Ethan could see through their mother's brave facade. They had heard her crying quietly in her room when she thought they were asleep. The twins lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling and listening to their mother's restless movements in the next room. They knew their family had very little money. Their apartment was in an old building where the heating barely worked in winter. They ate simple meals, and their clothes came from thrift stores. But none of that had ever mattered before because they had each other. Emma turned to face her brother in the darkness. "We have to do something," she whispered. Ethan nodded, even though she couldn't see him clearly. "But what can we do? We're just kids," he replied, his voice heavy with worry. Emma was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Then she remembered something that might help. Earlier that year, for their birthday, their mother had saved money for months to buy them each a special toy. Emma had received a beautiful dollhouse with tiny furniture, and Ethan had gotten a remote-controlled car that could do tricks. These toys were their most precious possessions, the nicest things they had ever owned. Sophia had worked extra shifts for 3 months to afford them, and the twins knew how much the gifts had meant to her to give. "What if we sell our toys?" Emma suggested quietly. Ethan was silent for a long moment. Those toys represented their mother's love and sacrifice. They were proof that despite their struggles, Sophia always tried to give her children moments of joy. But as Ethan thought about his mother's pale face and the fear in her eyes, he knew what they had to do. The next morning, while Sophia was at a doctor's appointment with Mrs. Chen, the twins began gathering items they could sell. They carefully packed Emma's dollhouse and all its tiny accessories into a box. Ethan wrapped his remote-controlled car in an old towel. They also collected some books, a few games, and other toys they had accumulated over the years. Emma found their mother's old phone book and looked up the addresses of nearby toy stores and pawn shops. She wrote down the information on a piece of paper, and the twins planned their route. They would start with the toy store closest to their apartment and work their way through the list. As they prepared to leave, Ethan picked up a photo of their family from the kitchen counter. It had been taken last Christmas, showing the 3 of them laughing together by their small Christmas tree. Their mother looked healthy and happy in the picture, her arms wrapped around both children. "We're going to save her," Ethan said firmly, and Emma nodded with determination. The twins had no idea that their simple plan would soon attract the attention of someone who could change their lives forever. They didn't know that their story of love and sacrifice would touch the heart of a powerful businessman who happened to be in the right place at the right time. All they knew was that their mother needed help, and they would do whatever it took to save her. With their boxes of toys in hand, Emma and Ethan stepped out into the cool autumn morning, ready to begin their mission. Their mother had always taught them that family comes first, and now it was their turn to prove just how much their family meant to them. The journey ahead would test their courage and determination, but the twins were ready to face whatever challenges came their way. The first toy store the twins visited was a small, cluttered shop called Wonderland Toys 3 blocks from their apartment. The elderly owner, Mr. Peterson, looked at Emma and Ethan with curiosity as they struggled through the door with their heavy boxes. The shop smelled like old cardboard and dust, with toys stacked high on every available surface. "Can I help you, children?" Mr. Peterson asked, adjusting his thick glasses. Emma took a deep breath and explained their situation. She told him about their mother's illness and how they needed money for her treatment. Mr. Peterson listened carefully, his expression growing more sympathetic with each word. When Emma finished speaking, Mr. Peterson examined their toys carefully. He held up Emma's dollhouse, admiring the detailed furniture and tiny decorations. Ethan demonstrated his remote-controlled car, showing how it could flip and spin. The toys were in excellent condition because the twins had always taken good care of their possessions. "These are very nice toys," Mr. Peterson said kindly. "I can see you've taken good care of them." He calculated some numbers on a piece of paper and offered them $50 for everything. The twins looked at each other with disappointment. $50 seemed like a lot of money to them, but they knew it wouldn't be nearly enough for their mother's medical bills. They thanked Mr. Peterson politely but decided to try other stores first. Maybe they could find someone who would pay more for their precious toys. As they walked down the street, Emma noticed that Ethan kept looking back at the toy store. She knew he was thinking the same thing she was. $50 was better than nothing. The second store they tried was a pawn shop with barred windows and a neon sign that flickered. The man behind the counter barely looked up from his newspaper when they entered. When the twins explained what they were trying to do, he glanced at their toys dismissively and offered them only $20 for everything. Emma felt tears stinging her eyes, but she blinked them away. They needed to be strong. By afternoon, the twins had visited 6 different shops. The highest offer they received was $65 from a toy store near the mall. Their feet hurt from walking, and their arms ached from carrying the heavy boxes. They sat on a bench outside the mall, sharing a bottle of water they had brought from home. "Maybe we should go back to Mr. Peterson," Ethan suggested quietly. $50 is better than 20. Emma nodded, but she felt discouraged. $50 wouldn't even cover one day in the hospital, let alone the expensive treatment their mother needed. As they prepared to head back to Wonderland Toys, Emma noticed a commotion near the mall's main entrance. A small crowd had gathered around a man in an expensive-looking suit. The man appeared to be in his 40s with graying hair and kind eyes. He was talking to a reporter and camera crew, apparently giving some sort of interview. Emma was curious, so she led Ethan closer to see what was happening. They heard the reporter asking the man about his company's new charity program. "Mr. Harrison, can you tell us more about your foundation's work with local families in need?" the reporter asked. The man, apparently named Mr. Harrison, spoke passionately about helping families facing medical emergencies. "Every family deserves access to proper health care," he said. "When children see their parents suffering, it breaks my heart. That's why our foundation exists, to bridge the gap when insurance isn't enough." Emma's heart began to race. This man was talking about exactly what their family was going through. She grabbed Ethan's hand and whispered, "We should talk to him." But Ethan shook his head nervously. "He's too important. He won't want to talk to kids like us." The interview concluded, and the camera crew began packing up their equipment. Mr. Harrison thanked the reporter and started walking toward a large black car where a driver was waiting. Emma watched him leave, feeling a mixture of hope and disappointment. Maybe Ethan was right. Someone that important wouldn't have time for their problems. But as Mr. Harrison reached his car, something unexpected happened. A strong wind blew through the mall courtyard, and one of Emma's toy boxes, which hadn't been closed properly, tipped over. Tiny dollhouse furniture scattered across the pavement, miniature chairs, tables, a small teddy bear, and a tiny lamp that had been Emma's favorite piece. Emma gasped and dropped to her knees, frantically trying to gather the scattered toys before they got lost or broken. Ethan immediately joined her, and together they crawled around on the ground, collecting the precious miniatures. Some people walked by without stopping, but then Emma noticed a pair of expensive leather shoes stop right in front of her. She looked up to see Mr. Harrison crouching down beside them. "Let me help you," he said gently, picking up the tiny teddy bear and examining it carefully. "This is beautiful craftsmanship. Is this yours?" Emma nodded, suddenly feeling embarrassed about their situation. "We were trying to sell our toys," Ethan explained as they continued gathering the scattered pieces. "Our mom is sick and she needs medicine we can't afford." Mr. Harrison listened quietly as the twins told their story. He helped them collect every last piece of dollhouse furniture, handling each item as if it were precious. When everything was safely back in the box, Mr. Harrison stood up and looked at the twins thoughtfully. "You know," he said, "I just finished an interview about helping families exactly like yours. It seems like fate that we met this way." Emma and Ethan exchanged glances, hardly daring to hope. "Would you mind if I asked you some questions about your mother's situation?" Mr. Harrison continued. "I might be able to help, but I'd need to understand exactly what kind of treatment she needs." The twins nodded eagerly, and Mr. Harrison suggested they sit on a nearby bench where they could talk more comfortably. As they sat together, Mr. Harrison listened intently while Emma and Ethan explained their mother's diagnosis and the mounting medical bills. He asked thoughtful questions about Sophia's condition and the doctor's recommendations. The twins answered as best they could, though they didn't understand all the medical terms. "You two are very brave," Mr. Harrison said when they finished. "Most children your age wouldn't even think of selling their most precious possessions to help their parents. Your mother raised some very special kids." Emma felt a warm feeling in her chest at his words, and she noticed that Ethan sat a little straighter with pride. Mr. Harrison pulled out his phone and made a quick call to someone he referred to as his assistant. He spoke quietly, mentioning medical records and insurance details. The twins couldn't hear everything, but they caught phrases like priority, case, and immediate assessment. When he finished the call, Mr. Harrison turned back to them with a serious expression. "I want to help your family," he said carefully. "But first I need to verify your mother's medical situation with her doctors. Would you be comfortable giving me your mother's name and the hospital where she's being treated?" Emma and Ethan looked at each other uncertainly. Their mother had always taught them to be cautious about sharing personal information with strangers. Seeing their hesitation, Mr. Harrison smiled understandingly. "You're absolutely right to be careful. How about this? Would you like to call your mother and ask if it's okay for you to talk to me?" He handed Emma his business card, which read, "James Harrison, CEO, Harrison Industries," in elegant lettering. Emma studied the card carefully. She had heard of Harrison Industries before. It was one of the biggest companies in their city. Her mother had mentioned seeing their name on billboards and in the newspaper. "You really run that whole company?" she asked in amazement. Mr. Harrison nodded, chuckling softly at her surprise. "I do, but right now I'm more interested in being someone who can help your family," he replied. "Why don't you call your mother? My driver can take you home safely afterward, regardless of what she decides." Emma borrowed Mr. Harrison's phone and dialed their home number with trembling fingers. Sophia answered on the second ring, her voice weak but concerned when she heard Emma's voice. "Sweetheart, where are you? I got home and found you both gone." Emma quickly explained about trying to sell their toys and meeting Mr. Harrison. She could hear her mother's sharp intake of breath when she mentioned his name. Emma, honey, you and your brother shouldn't be wandering around the city alone, Sophia said, though her voice was more worried than angry. And you certainly shouldn't be trying to sell your toys. We'll find another way to handle this situation. Emma's voice cracked as she tried to explain that they just wanted to help, that they couldn't stand seeing their mother suffer. Mr. Harrison gently took the phone from Emma. Mrs. Martinez, this is James Harrison. I want to assure you that your children are safe with me. They're remarkable kids, and I'd like to discuss how my foundation might be able to assist your family. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Sophia's voice was cautious when she finally responded. Mr. Harrison, I appreciate your concern, but I don't want charity. I've always worked hard to provide for my children, and I don't want to be a burden to anyone. Mr. Harrison's expression softened as he listened to the pride and determination in Sophia's voice. Mrs. Martinez, what your children are trying to do today shows exactly the kind of family values that my foundation wants to support, Mr. Harrison replied. This wouldn't be charity. It would be an investment in a family that clearly cares deeply for each other. Would you be willing to meet with me so we can discuss this properly? After some gentle persuasion, Sophia agreed to meet with Mr. Harrison that evening. He arranged for his driver to take the twins home immediately, along with their boxes of unsold toys. As they rode in the luxurious car, Emma and Ethan pressed their faces to the windows, amazed by the soft leather seats and the small television screen built into the back of the front seat. When they arrived at their apartment building, Mr. Harrison walked them to their door. Sophia opened it before they could knock, clearly having been watching from the window. She looked tired and pale, but she had put on her best dress and combed her hair carefully. Emma could see that her mother was nervous about meeting such an important person. Mrs. Martinez, Mr. Harrison said, extending his hand respectfully. Thank you for agreeing to see me. Your children told me about your situation, and I was impressed by their determination to help you. Sophia shook his hand, inviting him into their small living room and apologizing for the modest surroundings. Mr. Harrison looked around the apartment with interest rather than judgment. He noticed the family photos on the walls, the homework papers, stuck to the refrigerator with magnets, and the small details that spoke of a loving home despite limited means. You have a beautiful family and a warm home, he said sincerely, making Sophia relax slightly. As they sat around the kitchen table, Mr. Harrison explained his foundation's work in more detail. The Harrison Foundation focused on helping families facing medical emergencies, particularly when children were involved. We've learned that when parents are sick, children often try to take on responsibilities far beyond their years, he explained. Your twins' willingness to sell their most precious possessions tells me everything I need to know about the kind of family you are. Sophia listened carefully as Mr. Harrison outlined how his foundation could help. They would work directly with her doctors and the hospital to ensure she received the best possible treatment. The foundation would cover not only her medical expenses but also provide temporary financial support so she could focus on recovery rather than worrying about bills. I can't accept such generosity, Sophia said quietly, tears forming in her eyes. I don't know how I could ever repay something like that. Mr. Harrison leaned forward, his expression earnest and kind. Mrs. Martinez, 6 months ago, my own mother faced a similar health crisis, he said softly. I was fortunate enough to have the resources to get her the best care available, and I'm happy to say she's recovered completely. But her experience made me realize how many families don't have those same resources. Helping your family isn't just charity. It's my way of honoring my mother's recovery and ensuring other families have the same opportunities we did. Emma and Ethan watched their mother's face as she processed Mr. Harrison's words. They could see the internal struggle between her pride and her desperation to get well for her children. Finally, Sophia nodded slowly. If you're certain this is something your foundation does regularly, and it won't take resources away from other families who need help, then I gratefully accept your offer. Mr. Harrison smiled warmly and pulled out his phone to call his medical coordinator. Within minutes, he had scheduled Sophia for an appointment with one of the city's top specialists the following day. The foundation would handle all the paperwork and insurance coordination, ensuring that Sophia received comprehensive care without any financial stress. As Mr. Harrison prepared to leave, he turned to Emma and Ethan with a thoughtful expression. You know, I'm still thinking about what you two were willing to do today. That kind of love and sacrifice is rare, even among adults. I have a proposition for you both, if your mother agrees. Mr. Harrison sat back down at the kitchen table, his eyes twinkling with an idea that seemed to excite him. I've been thinking about something ever since I met you two today, he began. My company has been working on a new program, and I think you might be perfect for it. Emma and Ethan exchanged curious glances while Sophia listened intently. Mr. Harrison continued. We're launching an initiative called Young Voices for Change. It's designed to highlight stories of young people who show exceptional character and determination. We want to share these stories to inspire other families and show that age doesn't determine the size of someone's heart. Sophia frowned slightly, protective instincts kicking in. Mr. Harrison, I appreciate everything you're doing for us, but I don't want my children exploited or put on display because of our difficulties. Mr. Harrison nodded understandingly, respecting her concern. I completely understand your hesitation, Mrs. Martinez, and I respect your protective instincts, he replied. This wouldn't be about exploiting your situation. Instead, we'd like Emma and Ethan to become youth ambassadors for the foundation. They would help us identify other families in need and participate in community outreach programs. It would be a paid position and they could work around their school schedule. Ethan's eyes widened with interest. We could help other families like ours? He asked. Emma was equally intrigued, imagining how they could use their experience to help other children facing similar challenges with their parents' health. Mr. Harrison smiled at their enthusiasm. Exactly. You two understand what it feels like to worry about a parent's health and to feel helpless in the face of medical expenses. That experience, combined with your natural compassion, would make you excellent advocates for other families. He pulled out a tablet and showed them photos from previous foundation events, where other young people had helped distribute aid and support to families in crisis. The position would pay each of you $500 a month, Mr. Harrison continued, and you'd work approximately 10 hours per week, mostly on weekends and after school. Your duties would include visiting families, helping with foundation events, and sharing your story when you're comfortable doing so. Sophia's expression softened as she realized this was a legitimate job opportunity for her children, not charity disguised as work. Emma raised her hand tentatively, as if she were in school. Mr. Harrison, would we still be able to keep up with our homework and everything? She was a good student and didn't want to fall behind in her classes. Mr. Harrison assured her that education would always be their top priority, and the foundation would work around their academic schedules. There's one more thing, Mr. Harrison added with a gentle smile. The foundation would also establish education trust funds for both of you. Every month you work with us, we'll contribute to funds that will help pay for your college education when the time comes. Sophia gasped softly, her hand covering her mouth in amazement. You would do all of that for us? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Mr. Harrison, this is far more than we ever could have hoped for. Emma and Ethan looked at each other, with growing excitement, beginning to understand that their simple attempt to sell toys had led to something much bigger. Mr. Harrison stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where the Martinez family lived. Mrs. Martinez, I've built a successful company, but meeting your children today reminded me of something important. Real success isn't measured just in profit margins and stock prices. It's measured in the positive impact we can have on other people's lives. He turned back to face the family. Emma and Ethan showed me today what true character looks like. They were willing to sacrifice their most precious possessions for someone they love. That's the kind of spirit I want associated with my foundation. You're not just helping me by accepting this offer. You're helping me remember what really matters in life. Sophia wiped tears from her eyes, overwhelmed by the kindness and opportunity being offered to her family. If you're certain this is something that would genuinely help your foundation, then I agree, she said finally. But I want to be clear that my children's education and well-being come first always. Mr. Harrison nodded firmly. Absolutely. In fact, I'd like to introduce them to my daughter, Sarah. She's about your age, he said, looking at the twins. And she's been involved with the foundation since she was 10. She could help show you the ropes and maybe become friends with you, both. Emma felt a flutter of excitement at the prospect of making a new friend, especially one who was already involved in helping other families. She had always been somewhat shy, but the idea of working with other kids who cared about helping people made her feel braver. When would we start? Ethan asked practically. Mr. Harrison explained that they could begin the following week, after Sophia's medical treatment plan was established, and the family had time to adjust to their new circumstances. First things first, though, Mr. Harrison said, reaching into his briefcase. I want to handle your immediate concerns. He pulled out an envelope and placed it on the table. This covers your rent for the next 6 months, plus grocery money and other household expenses. I don't want you worrying about daily expenses while you're focusing on getting better, Mrs. Martinez. Sophia stared at the envelope, then looked up at Mr. Harrison, with tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to thank you, she said. This morning I was terrified about how we would survive the next few weeks. Now you're giving us hope for the future. Emma and Ethan moved to their mother's side, wrapping their arms around her in a family hug. Mr. Harrison watched the scene with satisfaction, knowing that his foundation's resources were being used exactly as intended, to preserve families and give children the chance to remain children, rather than shouldering adult responsibilities. There is one way you can thank me, Mr. Harrison said with a smile. Promise me that when you're all back on your feet, you'll remember this feeling and continue looking for ways to help other families in similar situations. Kindness has a way of multiplying when it's shared. As Mr. Harrison prepared to leave, he gave the twins his direct phone number and told them they could call him any time with questions or concerns. He also scheduled a meeting for the following Saturday, when they would visit the foundation offices and meet Sarah and other staff members. Standing at the door, Mr. Harrison looked back at the Martinez family one last time. You know, I came to the mall today for a routine interview about our charity work. I never expected to meet 2 remarkable young people who would remind me why I started the foundation in the first place. Sometimes the best things in life happen when you least expect them. The next few weeks passed like a wonderful dream for the Martinez family. Sophia's first appointment with the specialist went better than anyone had hoped. Dr. Williams, one of the city's most respected physicians, examined Sophia thoroughly and developed a comprehensive treatment plan. The foundation's medical coordinator worked directly with the hospital to ensure Sophia received the best possible care without any delays due to insurance complications. Emma and Ethan watched their mother's health improve steadily. The constant worry lines around Sophia's eyes began to fade, and her natural energy started returning. She was able to eat proper meals again, and most importantly, she could sleep peacefully through the night instead of waking up in pain. The twins felt like a heavy weight had been lifted from their shoulders. On Saturday morning, Mr. Harrison's driver arrived to take Emma and Ethan to the foundation offices for their first official day as youth ambassadors. The Harrison Foundation occupied 3 floors of a gleaming office building downtown with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered stunning views of the city. Emma and Ethan had never been in such an impressive building before. Sarah Harrison met them in the lobby, and the twins immediately liked her. She was 13 years old with bright green eyes and a warm smile that reminded them of her father. Unlike what they had expected from a billionaire's daughter, Sarah was down to earth and genuinely interested in their story. She wore simple jeans and a foundation t-shirt, and she talked to them like they were old friends. Dad told me about how you 2 were willing to sell your toys to help your mom, Sarah said as they rode the elevator to the foundation offices. That's exactly the kind of heart we need more of in this world. I think we're going to work really well together. The foundation offices buzzed with activity. Emma and Ethan met social workers, medical coordinators, and volunteer coordinators who all worked together to help families in crisis. Everyone they met was friendly and seemed genuinely passionate about their work. Mrs. Rodriguez, the youth program coordinator, explained that Emma and Ethan would start by learning about different families currently receiving help from the foundation. Their first assignment was to review case files of 3 families with children around their age. Each family faced different challenges, One had a father who had been injured in a construction accident, another had a mother fighting cancer, and the third was dealing with a child who needed expensive surgery. Emma and Ethan read each story carefully, their hearts going out to these families who were experiencing struggles similar to what their own family had faced. "What we'd like you to do," Mrs. Rodriguez explained, "is think about what these families might need beyond just financial help. Sometimes emotional support and knowing that other people care can be just as important as money." She gave them notebooks and asked them to write down their thoughts and suggestions for each family. Emma found herself particularly drawn to the story of 7-year-old Miguel, whose mother was undergoing chemotherapy. Miguel had been acting out at school and having nightmares, clearly struggling to understand why his mother was sick. Emma remembered her own fears during the early days of her mother's illness and wrote detailed suggestions about how the foundation could provide emotional support for Miguel. Ethan focused on the family whose father had been injured. The man had been the primary breadwinner, and his injury meant he couldn't return to his physically demanding job. Ethan suggested that the foundation help connect the father with job retraining programs so he could learn skills for a different type of work that wouldn't aggravate his injury. Sarah worked alongside them, sharing her own experiences from 3 years of volunteering with the foundation. "The most important thing I've learned," she told them during lunch, "is that every family is different. What helps one family might not be right for another. That's why it's so valuable to have people like you who really understand what it feels like to be in these situations." In the afternoon, Emma and Ethan accompanied Sarah and Mrs. Rodriguez on their first family visit. They went to see the Chen family, whose 10-year-old daughter, Lily, needed heart surgery. Mr. and Mrs. Chen were immigrants who spoke limited English, and they felt overwhelmed by the medical system and insurance paperwork. Emma and Ethan watched as Sarah interacted with Lily, playing games and helping her feel less scared about her upcoming surgery. They saw how much it meant to the Chen parents to have young people who could relate to their daughter's fears. Lily immediately connected with the twins, especially when they told her about their own mother's recovery. "Your mama got better?" Lily asked hopefully in her careful English. Emma nodded and took Lily's hand. "She got much better, and the doctors were really nice. They helped her feel better little by little, and soon she was strong again." Lily's smile lit up her whole face, and her parents looked visibly relieved to see their daughter's spirits lift. On the drive back to the office, Mrs. Rodriguez praised Emma and Ethan for their natural ability to connect with the families they visited. "You both have a gift for making people feel heard and understood," she said. "That's something that can't be taught. It comes from having genuine compassion and your own experiences with hardship." When Mr. Harrison picked them up at the end of the day, he could see the excitement and satisfaction in their faces. "How did your first day go?" he asked as they settled into his car. Emma and Ethan took turns telling him about everything they had learned and the families they had met. "I never realized there were so many families going through situations like ours," Emma said thoughtfully. "It makes me sad that so many people are struggling, but it also makes me happy that we can help them." Ethan nodded in agreement, adding that he felt proud to be part of something that made such a real difference in people's lives. Mr. Harrison listened to their reflections with a warm smile. "You know, when I first started the foundation 5 years ago, I thought success would be measured by how much money we could raise and how many families we could help. But hearing you two talk about your first day, I realized that success is also measured by how much the experience changes the people doing the helping." As they drove through their neighborhood toward home, Emma noticed things she had never paid attention to before. She saw an elderly woman struggling with heavy grocery bags and made a mental note to ask Mrs. Rodriguez if the foundation had programs for seniors. Ethan pointed out a homeless man sitting outside the convenience store and wondered aloud if there were ways they could help people who didn't have homes at all. "You're starting to see the world differently," Mr. Harrison observed. "That's one of the most valuable gifts that comes from helping others. It opens your eyes to needs and opportunities you might never have noticed before." He explained that this broader perspective would make them even more effective as youth ambassadors. When they arrived home, Sophia was in the kitchen preparing dinner, looking healthier and happier than she had in months. She listened eagerly as Emma and Ethan described their day at the foundation. sharing stories about Sarah, the families they had met, and the work they would be doing in the coming weeks. "I'm so proud of both of you," Sophia said, hugging her children tightly. "A few weeks ago, you were trying to sell your toys to help me. Now you're helping other families facing similar challenges. It's like our difficult time led us to exactly where we were meant to be." 6 months later, the Martinez family's life had transformed in ways they never could have imagined. Sophia had completed her treatment successfully and returned to work, though now she had a better position at an upscale restaurant downtown, thanks to a referral from one of the foundation's board members. Her health was completely restored, and she glowed with vitality and happiness. Emma and Ethan had become some of the most effective youth ambassadors in the foundation's history. They had helped over 30 families navigate medical crises, and their suggestions had led to several new programs within the foundation. Their natural empathy and personal experience made them trusted voices among both the families they served and the foundation staff. The twins had also excelled academically, inspired by their work and the education trust funds that were growing steadily. Emma discovered a passion for social work and announced her intention to study psychology in college. Ethan became interested in healthcare administration, wanting to help make medical care more accessible to families like his own had been. One evening in spring, Mr. Harrison invited the Martinez family to a special dinner at his home. The Harrison mansion was elegant but welcoming, and Sarah greeted Emma and Ethan at the door like the close friends they had become. Over the past months, the three young people had worked together on numerous projects, and Sarah had become like a sister to the twins. During dinner, Mr. Harrison made an announcement that surprised everyone. "I've been thinking a lot about the future of the foundation," he said, looking directly at Emma and Ethan. "You two have brought perspectives and ideas that have made our work more effective than ever before. I'd like to offer you something special." He explained that he wanted to establish a scholarship program specifically for young people who had overcome significant family challenges. Emma and Ethan would be the first recipients, receiving full college scholarships along with internship opportunities at Harrison Industries. But more than that, he wanted them to help design and run the program for future students. "You understand what it means to face adult problems as children," Mr. Harrison said. "That experience, combined with your natural compassion and intelligence, makes you uniquely qualified to help other young people who are dealing with similar situations." Sophia wiped tears from her eyes, overwhelmed by the continued generosity and faith Mr. Harrison showed in her children. Emma and Ethan looked at each other, then at their mother, seeking her approval. Sophia nodded encouragingly, and the twins accepted Mr. Harrison's offer with gratitude and excitement. They would continue working with the foundation throughout high school and college, eventually taking on leadership roles in the organization. As the evening continued, Sarah showed Emma and Ethan a scrapbook she had been creating. It contained photos and stories from all the families they had helped together, along with letters of gratitude and updates on how each family was doing. Lily Chen had successfully recovered from her heart surgery and was now a healthy, active 5th grader. Miguel's mother had completed her cancer treatment and was in remission. The father, who had been injured in the construction accident, had completed a computer programming course and found a well-paying job that accommodated his physical limitations. "Look at all the lives you've touched," Sarah said, flipping through page after page of success stories. "Remember that day at the mall when you were just trying to sell your toys? You had no idea that your love for your mom would end up helping so many other families." Emma and Ethan studied each photo and letter, amazed by the ripple effect their simple act of love had created. Mr. Harrison joined them as they looked through the scrapbook. "You know, I've learned something important from working with your family," he said thoughtfully. "I always believed that successful people had an obligation to help those less fortunate. But you three taught me that sometimes the people who seem to need help the most are actually the ones with the most to offer." He pointed to a photo of Emma and Ethan working with a family whose teenage son was struggling with his father's illness. That young man was angry and scared, just like you two were in the beginning. But when he saw how you had channeled your fear into helping others, it changed his whole perspective. Now he volunteers at the hospital where his father receives treatment. As the evening wound down, the Martinez family prepared to head home to their new apartment, a larger place in a safer neighborhood, made possible by Sophia's new job and the children's income from the foundation. Before they left, Mr. Harrison pulled Emma and Ethan aside for a private conversation. "I want you both to know that meeting you was one of the most important things that ever happened to me," he said seriously. "I had built a successful company and started a foundation, but I was starting to lose sight of why any of that mattered. Seeing your willingness to sacrifice for your mother reminded me that love and family are the most important things in life." He handed each twin a small wrapped gift. Inside, Emma found a beautiful locket with a photo of her family, and Ethan received a watch engraved with the date they first met Mr. Harrison. "I want you to remember this journey," Mr. Harrison said. "Remember that even when life seems hopeless, love and determination can create miracles." Emma hugged Mr. Harrison tightly, something that would have seemed impossible just months earlier when he was the intimidating stranger in an expensive suit. "Thank you for seeing something special in us," she said. "You didn't just help our family. You showed us that we could help other families too." Ethan shook Mr. Harrison's hand solemnly, then surprised everyone by giving him a hug as well. "You taught us that being successful means using what you have to help other people," he said. "When we grow up, we want to be like you, not just rich, but kind." As the Martinez family drove home that night, they reflected on the incredible journey that had begun with two scared children trying to sell their toys. Sophia looked at her healthy, confident children and marveled at how their act of love had not only saved her life, but had given their entire family a new purpose and direction. Emma and Ethan continued their work with the Harrison Foundation throughout high school, eventually inspiring dozens of other young people to become involved in community service. Their story became legendary within the organization, proof that sometimes the most powerful changes begin with the smallest acts of love. Years later, when Emma graduated with her psychology degree and Ethan completed his healthcare administration program, they would establish their own nonprofit organization focused on helping children cope when their parents faced medical crises. But they never forgot that their journey began on a simple autumn day, when love motivated them to carry boxes of toys through the streets, hoping to save the most important person in their world. The Martinez family had learned that miracles do happen, but they usually come disguised as ordinary people who choose to act with extraordinary kindness. And sometimes, those ordinary people find you exactly when you need them most, changing not just your life, but showing you how to change the lives of others.